Hello GQ, Roger Bennett of Men in Blazers, and the World Cup is on the horizon. I'm going to tell you all you need to know. The World Cup is such a deeply powerful human experience. Wars have stopped because the World Cup is on and both sides wanted to watch the football. And the true power of the World Cup comes from the fact that when two teams take the field, their nation's histories, their nation's politics, their nation's culture take the field alongside them. And that's what makes this feel so epic. To be clear, the football is not always the greatest. Club football has now far surpassed it because those guys, they're playing every day on the training field. These teams are almost like all-star teams, but it's the symbolic power of the hopes and the dreams and the politics of their nation taking that field that gives it its incredible drama. So the World Cup is run by FIFA, the organisation which stands for the Fédération Internationale de Football Association. It's a bit like Spectre in the Bond movies. It's meant to be the governing organisation that looks after football with grace and goodness across the world. But the key is it's a self-governing organisation, and global football is now so enormous. The fusion of television and the penetration of television sets across the globe, multinational global sponsors who are desperate to get their product out and see the World Cup as just the greatest global platform to communicate with every eyeball all at once. And of course, football. Those three things fusing together give FIFA enormous power. FIFA presides over this whole glorious competition, which starts out with 211 competing nations. And these 211 teams are organised into different areas, different regions, different confederations. They all have their own deeply confusing amalgam of initials to describe who they are and where they are. UEFA in Europe, CONMEBOL in South America, and then America, where we live, goes by CONCACAF. So they each have their different, essentially mini regional tournaments. They all have their different rules, their different regs. In Europe, they all play against each other in groups of 5 or 6. Here, we kind of do it crazy, where the tiny, tiny islands of like St. Kitts and Nevis start off and they're somehow eliminated along the way. And it gets to be pretty well the last 8 teams who play each other in a final knockout round. And my God, all you need to know, this time, the United States actually made it. World Cup 2022 is distinct, it's singular. So FIFA has always taken football to controversial places and ultimately takes football to places where its members are paid the most. How do you get a World Cup? The funny is the United States thought it was going to have the World Cup. They thought they had it in the bag. And I watched from New York City, believing, again, like an innocent kid with a beer in hand, that the United States, the nation I love more than ever, was about to get a World Cup. They announced the 2018 one first. And the head then of FIFA went up with his card and he said, Russia. And we're like, what? And Russia, retrospectively, yes, Putin needed the propaganda, needed the sports washing coup. But Russia was almost the diversion by FIFA from the next award, 2022. They announced, they pull out the card and they said, and I was like, USA, and they're like, Qatar. And the world's like, what the f***? Did they say Qatar, a country that had never qualified for the World Cup, whose team was ranked then 113th in the world, that has a population the size of Las Vegas and a physical landmass in the desert, which is smaller than the state of Connecticut? How is that World Cup ready? 5 billion people are going to watch this tournament. 1.2 million people are expected to travel. Where are they going to what state? The Qatar World Cup plan promised a game in a city, which the city hadn't even been built yet, never mind the stadium. And it was hypothetical, and it had, the temperature's 110 degrees in the summer. So like, don't worry, we're gonna have clouds specially made that will float in and create shade. And it was like, genuinely, it was like as if Q from James Bond was now working for the Qataris and dealing with this plan. It was so brazen. And slowly they started to worry about the summer problem, the heat. You can't play football in 110, 112 degree heat. And they decided for the first time ever that this tournament, which is a summer tournament, it's a June and July tournament. That's when it's been played since 1930. They were like, nope, We're going to shift it to November. We're going to take, and everyone's, the club, there's football being played. You're Manchester United, you're Bayern Munich, Barcelona, the club football, that whole calendar. And like, we'll pause the calendar. And so the economy, the ecosystem of global football has been buckled, turned on its head, and will stop for an entire month, mid-season, for the World Cup. Who are the teams to watch? Well, this is a World Cup, so first on the list is always Brazil, because Brazil and World Cups are just utterly synonymous in every regard. The second favourite, bookmakers have got England, which is astonishing to me as a kid. The wounds of World Cups dreamt about and early exits, self-sabotage, humiliation, they have changed. English football has gotten better because the English Premier League is now the best in the world, and they're able to pluck some of the English stars from there to actually create quite a formidable force. They've rebranded themselves and are now the nearly men. Last two tournaments, semi-final in the last World Cup, the final in the European version, the Euros. They are the men of so close, but ultimately only agony. France are your third favourites, the defending champions. Only two teams before have ever successfully defended a World Cup victory. To paraphrase Robert Baratheon, it's much easier to win a World Cup than sit on the Iron Throne, or whatever the hell he said. Then there's the USA. 100-1 for the bookies. Maybe like a wine that is too early to drink, but you know is going to be great down the road. An incredible class of young talents, all of whom for the first time are really en masse playing, thriving in the great teams of Europe, which is new for America. You know, we used to get excited when one of our players would play against Juventus or Chelsea or AC Milan. Now we have kids who are in the squads for all of them. It really is, for us, a golden generation, but maybe a World Cup too soon. Which group am I most excited to watch? Despite my accent, I live and die with the US men's national team, the US women's national team, and to watch this young crop of talent fulfill their dreams. Tyler Adams, who is one of the captains of the team, I first met when he was 16. He swaggered into my studio. He's incredibly emotionally articulate, and he said, looked at me in the eye, he goes, one day I'm going to be the captain of the US team and I'm going to lead my country out at the World Cup. And you know, I have a show every month with Tyler where he talks about his journey to the World Cup, and to watch him take the field in particular will be utterly thrilling. To see that crop of gents test themselves together as a collective against the best in the world, just emotionally, it's incredibly thrilling. They've been drawn in a tough group with Wales, who are like a sleeper team. Just one of those teams with very few big names, but as a collective, they are just a clenched fist. They've been drawn against Iran. As I said, football is really a reflection of the geopolitics that surrounds it. We last played Iran in 1998, right after the hostage crisis. American football was still trying to prove itself to its nation. You know, the president was like, don't let us down, boys. So of course we crapped the bed with the nation watching. We lost 2-1, or as they call it in Iran, I think it was Iran 2, Great Satan 1. And so there's a match with, I'd say, a lot of history. When they take that field and the pressure, the scrutiny, I hope the human wonder will be remarkable to witness. But the biggest game is November the 25th. They will play England, which everyone's like, who will you support? And I am like, despite my accent, I am like USA all the way. And the amazing thing is, the game was invented in England. England believes that it is peerless and that football's always coming home. But they've played before twice in the World Cup, the USA and England. And I am very happy and draw, say, a modicum of confidence from the fact that the record is USA 1-1, drawn 1. And that 1950 win, when a team of just amateurs and minor league baseball players who kind of flung on football gear just looked at the greatest English team of the 50s in the eye and somehow slaughtered them. Ultimately, that's what I'm hoping for. But just a repeat of 1950, I don't ask too much. Two games I'm ecstatically looking forward to that do not involve the United States of America in that opening round. The first would be Spain against Germany, just two European superpowers. You know, they won World Cup 2010, Spain, Germany 2014. There's an old adage that football's a simple game, 22 men take the field, and then Germany win. Spain challenged that in the 2000s. They play this incredible collective passing game. So many of their players have come through together. They almost have human telepathy on that football field. And that game will be very much like vintage Celtics dynasty taking on vintage Lakers dynasty. The other game that I cannot wait for in that opening round, Poland playing Argentina. And that game is really about two incredible human beings, colossi, who've stood over the game. Lewandowski of Poland, one of the truly great, prolific goal machines of the modern game, taking the field and facing Lionel Messi, who will be in his 5th World Cup, the tiny Argentinian, a gentleman of human wonder. He has come so bloody close in the final in 2014, but he's also crapped out with barely a blip. And as a human being, I do pretend I'm a human being. I'm probably 97% football fan, 3% human being. But whenever Lionel Messi, who has the weight of the world on his shoulders to prove that he's the greatest player, he is the greatest player in the world to me, whatever he does in the World Cup. That the Uruguayan poet Eduardo Galeano, he wrote that Diego Maradona runs with the ball at his feet as if it's glued to his shoe. Lionel Messi, he said, plays as if that ball is actually stuck inside his sock. It's just humanly transcendent to watch him. Whatever he does, God bless him, he's still the GOAT in my mind. But whenever he craps out in the World Cup, the sight of Lionel Messi leaving the field in tears, because he always cries when he loses, just this valiant, utterly abject, defeated poet warrior. Just watching his tears, it's like when Prince sang, "This is what it sounds like when doves cry." That's what it feels like when you watch Lionel Messi, and for that reason alone, my God, I hope he wins it all. Some bold predictions for this World Cup. The team I am most looking forward to watching is Denmark, a delirious collective. You may remember at the last major tournament, the Euros, the talisman of the team, Christian Eriksen, with nobody around him on the field, with the whole world watching, just keeled over, suffered a cardiac arrest on the field. A young gentleman in his 20s was, as he said later, dead on the field. He was resuscitated by medics and fought his way back with a defibrillator and now plays in the Premier League for Manchester United. I've interviewed him a couple of times and he said he used to take football so seriously. He used to think it was life and death, but after experiencing actual death, plays with a freedom, a joy, and he was a phenomenal footballer. He's become even more lethal with that freedom, with that joy, and his whole team play with that spirit. And ultimately, international football, it's not about the best player. How will Ronaldo lead Portugal to glory? It really is about the best collective, that intangible spirit, belief, freedom, and joy. And watching Denmark, I believe they will go deep. But who will join them? And it really is a murderer's row of talent. So much unbelievable elite young talent. Vinicius Jr., Alphonso Davies leading Canada back for their first World Cup since 1986. Really a phenomenal group of human beings, coached so intensely, tactically well. To watch them and to witness them, to see the pride of the Canadian nation. Really, I mean, they made football truly a great Canadian sport. Your Brazils, your Argentines, France with Mbappe are going to be a thing of magic. England, I don't doubt, will raise a nation's hopes and then find some cruel way to absolutely crap on them. But at the end, I wouldn't be surprised if Qatar win the whole bloody thing. Depends how much they paid for it. How best to watch this World Cup? Everybody does their own World Cup differently. Because of Men in Blazers, everyone's like, I'd love to watch a game with you. Honestly, it's a horrific experience. My children will attest to that. It's essentially a grown man screaming at the television, thinking that that screaming will alter events, which is often over 3,500 miles away. I still believe to this day it does. So I'd say the best way to do it in a pub, if you're that kind of human being, if you're a group person, if you love to be at home in the old pajamas and the old dressing gown, shout at the television way, anything in between, and we will be twitching away. But mostly, the joy of football is that when that transcendent moment happens, when Lionel Messi picks up that ball, eyes up the Polish defence, finds those crevices of space, and there will be a lot of space in this World Cup, a lot of tired legs mid-season, a lot of confused players, charges through them and scores with a moment of just mighty Ducks wonder. That is the joy of football. It's the memory that you are making, but you're also aware that in millions of homes, it's that sense of togetherness, that sense of community, that sense of deep connection. That ultimately is what I hope people take away from this World Cup.